Okay guys, I'm going to show you how to replace a broken lug nut stud on a 2010 Toyota Sequoia. I've got the wheel taken off already, obviously, and first thing I need to do to get to the rotor and get it off is take off our brake caliper. So I've already done this and put it back together, but I was able to just take the whole caliper off without removing the actual brake pads in the cylinder that compresses the brake pads here. What you do to remove this actual caliper is it's a 17 millimeter. There's one here. I use the ratcheting wrenches because it was kind of hard to get a socket into here. But there's one here, and then you can see the other one right down here at the bottom, right there. So they're both 17 millimeters. You take those off, that will remove the whole caliper. Now, sometimes the brake pads are too tight on the rotor to remove the caliper, and you have to remove the brake pads in the cylinder first. Also 17 millimeter. So instead of the caliper removable bolt here, it's actually the bolts right here. And the other one is right there. And then you can remove the caliper and the brake pads, and then you can remove the, you can remove the brake pads in the cylinder here, and then you can remove the caliper. And then once you have that all off, then you'll have access to the rotor to get it off and remove that broken lug nut stud. The rotor, and I've already removed it. I just want to make sure I can get it off and get the right parts and everything before I started a video. So, but the rotor, in my case, it was rusted on there pretty good. So I live in a state where they use a lot of salt in the winter and things get rusted together. So if your rotor is rusted on there, the best thing to do is, if you're wanting to get it off, first thing you want to do is and I'll show you this too, I took this out. There is a rubber grommet that goes in this hole right here, and you pop that out. That gives you access to your emergency brake adjuster. So the emergency brake should just be barely touching that rotor on the inside, is where you want it, but that makes it a little bit more difficult to get off, as well as the rust. So once you have that off, you'll want to turn the wheel so that this access hole is about right here. And I'll show you when I pull this rotor off what is inside there. So inside there is the way you can adjust your emergency brake down with a flathead screwdriver. It's got a rotating like a little bolt adjuster on there that has threads on it, and then you can flick and rotate it with your flathead screwdriver to loosen it, to make the emergency brake pads go in smaller. I was rotating it down towards the ground, basically down this way, and then that will pull your emergency brakes in. But I sprayed this with a lot of WD-40 in order to try and get that rust to break loose, and then I just used a rubber mallet and hit along here. Another thing to do as well, I forgot to mention, is you'll want to have it obviously jacked up. Use jack stands for safety purposes to keep it on the jacks when you're pounding on this, and then have it in neutral so you can rotate this and get it to the access point, as well as while you're hitting it to get it loose, you'll want to kind of rotate it and hit it and rotate it and hit it, so you're hitting it in different spots. I was just pounding it along here, even up here. You don't want to hit the guard that's along here, the brake dust guard, so you don't want to hit that, but you can hit along here. I was even coming in from this side and tapping in here pretty good. Eventually you'll get it to break loose. Hopefully you're not in an area that has a lot of rust like I have. So, and then I'll show you what it looks like once this rotor's off. Okay, so once you get the rotor off, this is what it's going to look like. You can see your emergency brake mechanism in here, your brake pads, and the adjuster, I'll show you that, I'll bring it down here, is right there. And so what you're doing on that is you can see through that access hole and hit this cog here with your flathead screwdriver, and as you adjust that down, it brings those pads in. And when you're done, you'll adjust that back out to where it's just barely touching the rotor. That's how you get those brake pads to release a little bit better on there. And then see, the problem here is this section here. All this in here gets rusted onto the rotor. There's the broken lug nut stud right there. These just pop out of the back. I'll show you the new one that I've got. So you can see here, they have these grooves along this to seat that into the back of that wheel bearing hub there. And you'll tap that in as far as you can, and then when you thread on your lug nut, it'll pull it in the rest of the way to seat it. And so to get this one out, I just tapped on it with a hammer, and it came right out. It wasn't too hard at all. So I'll show you that broken one. So as you can see, if I can get my camera to focus, there's the broken one. It's got the same grip lines on it there to seat it into place. Sorry, my phone won't focus on it very good. So, and then that's where it just came out right there. So we'll put the new one back in and put everything back together. Okay, we got the new one in there, and it was pretty easy. Just slide it in through the back, and then I was able to tap it in, and then I put the lug nut on it and then screwed it down, and I pulled it in, and then it'll keep pulling it in even better once I have the wheel on there and tighten it down. So that's how easy it is to replace a broken lug nut stud, other than just the rusted together parts. And then we'll put everything back together and adjust that emergency brake back to where it's snug and get back on the road.